We're continuing to follow the FBI investigation into a vehicle explosion in downtown Nashville Christmas morning. The blast left widespread damage in the downtown area. Fire officials say at least 3 people were hospitalized, none injured critically. Police are calling it an intentional act, but federal officials have not yet made that determination. And joining us now from Washington is CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge. Catherine, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to, first of all, get us back up to speed with the latest presser that we listened to in the last hour. We saw FBI, local law enforcement, the ATF, saying that they had encountered this RV and they found a voice recording inside that said that it would detonate within minutes. Can you talk about what they use that information with now and what other information you've learned in the last hour surrounding this investigation?
Well, Tom, just to recap from that news conference, it was the U.S. Attorney in Nashville, as well as the FBI, the ATF, and local authorities. And the U.S. Attorney Don Cochran emphasized that the full resources of the Justice Department here in Washington, as well as the FBI, are being brought to bear on this investigation in Nashville. And he was the one who briefed the acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen on the status of the investigation. The FBI confirmed that they are pursuing a number of leads at this point, but significantly they are seeking the public's assistance, saying we need your help and we need your leads. In addition, what we learned is that at this point there is no imminent danger, they think, in the Nashville area, but as a precaution, they're taking out bomb dog teams to sweep the area, but no evidence at this point that there could be an imminent risk to people in that area. Now, on the RV, I think one of the most fascinating headlines out of that news conference is that there was this announcement, a kind of warning emanating from the vehicle, and that in itself may have saved a lot of lives in this case, Tom.
Yeah, it's certainly a fascinating detail. We'll have to see what other details emerge with regard to that recording. So I want to talk about the device at the center of the explosion. What are you learning about from the FBI about that, Catherine?
Well, I spoke with a former senior ATF official, someone with 3 decades of experience, Scott Sweethow, and who also worked with something called TDAC. This is the FBI's, they're sort of the experts and the repository for information about improvised explosive devices. And I want to emphasize we don't know yet what was involved in the explosion in Nashville. And Scott Sweethow pointed out to me that if there had been sufficient explosives to eviscerate so to vaporize, if you will, this RV, it would have to be hundreds of pounds of highly explosive material. And he also emphasized that if that had been the case, you would have seen, because of the amplification of the impact of that explosion, a lot of building collapse in the area, as well as a very large crater surrounding the explosive site. So these are all sort of details that caught his attention. We haven't had a full look at the scene yet. We certainly don't have any idea about the forensics, but I thought that was important context as we wait to see what this investigation reveals. And
we should also point out that in that presser, they mentioned that there was no information on a body inside the RV.
Correct.
They do not know if anyone was inside at the time of the explosion. So where do we go from here, Catherine? What are investigators going to be looking into with regard to this chaotic event?
Well, I think the good news for investigators is that this is a part of Nashville which has a lot of surveillance cameras, a lot of video. They've indicated to reporters this morning that they're already pouring through that tape, and that is going to be likely a real gold mine for information in terms of understanding the timing when this suspicious vehicle was parked in that section of Nashville, also individuals who may be associated with that vehicle, or maybe even other vehicles or activity in that immediate area. And it may also reveal the importance, if any, of the AT&T building and whether that was a target in some way. Scott Sweethow, this former FBI and ATF official, said to me he thought it was significant that the Bureau was in the lead on this investigation so early. He said, based on his 30 years of experience, that tells them that the FBI has information about the likely target, maybe an interstate commerce target, as well as, or perhaps in addition to individuals who were involved. And that, of course, would come from things like that surveillance video.
Based on the information that he gave you, Catherine, it is interesting as well that this would have required a lot of explosive material. Would that help or aid investigators in maybe tracing back where this could have been purchased from, where this person found it?
Well, I want to be clear because I don't want to speculate for folks at home because we don't have that information yet. But based on my past experience, a couple of decades doing this, things like the forensics on the explosives, any kind of timing device, if the conclusion is in the end that it was some kind of IED, all of that can be traced back with a lot of precision to points of purchase. And then the world we live in now, those points of purchase often have electronic trails for individuals and then also cameras. And I'll tell you, the video surveillance is so helpful in a situation like this. Not so helpful preventing it, but helpful after the fact, tracking down individuals of interest who were in the area.
And this is one last question that I have for you, and you may not be able to answer it, but did you get any sort of indication from the former acting director that this could have been associated with a larger group, a criminal group, or? I
don't want to speculate on that at this point. I just respectfully, I think it's a little bit too early, but I think the bottom line for folks at home is that it is significant that the FBI has picked up the lead on this investigation so early. Based on my contacts, that suggests to them that they have some information that is non-public information that's helping them understand the target and perhaps the individual or individuals who are responsible.
Yeah, certainly the bottom line, as well as a lot of questions still to be answered. Catherine Herridge, your insight is very much appreciated, especially with your decades of experience covering these things. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Tom.